Hello, everyone. Welcome back. This is 2.6, part 2 of our Indigenous Filipino history and colonialism. And our essential question is: how has colonialism impacted Indigenous people around the world, such as the Philippines? Right about now, you should have already finished your do now with this image. And review a colonialism again is when a country invades and takes control of another country and claims it as its own. So we have already questioned in part 2. I'm sorry, in part 1, and we were asking, what do we know about the Filipino history, right? Yes, they made an impact. I'm sorry. Yes, the Spanish, not the Spanish. Yes, they were colonized. But we want to know, did they just sit there and be like, yeah, take over, or was there a resistance? So we're going to question, at least in this 2.6 part 2, how have Indigenous people shown resistance to attacks on their lives? And as we know, there's have always been revolutions, right? Well, this is my favorite part of the Filipino history, because as we know, with colonialism, there was dehumanization, right? There was a force in bringing religion, right? And so there was a conversion to Catholicism, and that was expected. Natives were caught practicing their traditional ceremonies, were punished, as we learned from the California missions. And there's a lot of written histories and cultural artifacts that were burned, right? That's why we don't see a lot of that here and today. Like, if we visited the mission, at least from my experience, I didn't see a lot of what the natives did because that was thrown out. Those in power, they seized the land. And there was polo y servicio, which means a system of forced harsh labor and enslavement, which we've seen in the California missions. And there was a lot of racial and social hierarchies. So as you can see, there's the idea, there's a term called colorism, right? Where the ranking, if you have a lighter skin tone, you had more privilege. Whereas if you were darker in color, that took you close to being close to the indigenous. So that gave you a lower ranking. And we kind of see that in the long-term effects of colonialism, but that's a different conversation that we will be talking later on. And so we had this we actually had the resistance because of all of that was happening with this humanization of our indigenous Filipinos. So the reason why there was a battle, the Battle of Mactan, which was led by Lapu-Lapu, and then this was throughout the islands. The native Filipinos regularly revolted and resisted against the Spanish, and this is an example of what resistance looks like. So we have this dude that came in. His name was Magellan. His name was Ferdinand, and he traveled around the world. He was, I guess you can say, like a Christopher Columbus, who would go around and find these new places, right? And they would, call it their territory, make it their own. And because at the time, let's put it this way, there were no cars, so the only tool of transportation were boats. So the oceans were like some type of freeways. However, because you have these bigger European countries who are trying to claim lands, Portugal and Spain made a pact, and they said, hey, Spain, you are going to go to the west, and Portugal, you are going to go to the east, right? They made that. However, Magellan, he was very curious about this certain island. And so he made a treaty with the Spanish crown, which is the monarchy, and said, hey, if you give me 5 ships, I will lead this expedition, which he ended up in the archipelagos of the Philippines. So as he was in the Philippines, he became friends with King Raja, which he was a king of the Philippines, and his wife became allies with Magellan, and they converted to Catholicism, and they were like, hell yeah, Catholicism, what's up? And so they wanted all of the Filipinos of the community to become Catholics, and they said, hey, we're going to be Catholics, and we're going to support this guy because he's our friend, and we're going to give him food, we're going to give him supplies for his expeditions, and it's coming from us, right? The resources. Some folks were into it, except one, I believe his name was, except for one chief or datu, his name was Lapu Lapu from Mactan. He was like, hell no, I'm not into it. I'm not going to buy it. I am not going to feed this man who just came into our land. And so Raja was like, okay, this is not cool. Magellan, we got your backs. Come take our men. You're going to go to Mactan, and we're going to give you 60 men from my people, and they're going to protect you to fight Lapu Lapu so he can convert, right? But what Magellan didn't know was that Lapu Lapu was obviously super aware of his land. He knew how to fight. He was a warrior. And what he didn't expect was that Lapu Lapu had 1,500 warriors waiting for him at the shore. So Magellan said, you know what? Don't worry about it. I'm going to take about 40 men with me to the shore because the boat couldn't get close to land because there was a lot of coral reefs and rocks. So he's like, we got this. So they got off the boat, and as they were walking towards the shore, Lapu Lapu strategically told his people, you know what? This guy is kind of lame. Yeah, they're protected and everything, but we're going to make sure that we kill Magellan, because if we kill this guy, then his team is going to go down and they're not going to have a plan. And make sure that you're aiming the legs, because their legs are not protected, as you can see in the picture. They weren't protected. The top was protected, but not the bottom. So basically, Lapu Lapu kicked some booty, and it won. That was the first resistance and the first revolt, and that was the first battle that was won. And in 1521, however, there are no recollections of Lapu Lapu after this incident. We don't know what happened to him. There is a statue, I believe, of Lapu Lapu in the Philippines, but that is the first revolt of the indigenous folks in the Philippines against colonialism. I hope this found you a little interest. I hope this was a little interesting. Please take your notes, and then you will continue your practice. Okay, folks? Have a good rest of your day. And if you have any questions, talk to me. Bye.